Sport Fishing on the Fly is brought to you by Maui Jim Sunglasses. First Tellurium Corp., the future of mining. And Hardy Rods and Reels. Today on the bench I want to tie you Don's baby copper top chironomid. Our copper top chironomid as a bomber was very effective, but we really thinned it out and made it small. So make sure you have these materials ready before you tie the fly. For the hook, we'll use a size 18 2x long curved nymph, some 8/0 steel thread to tie with, a 2mm magic brown bead for the bead, some white antron for the gills, some 8/0 steel thread for the body, some 6/0 black thread for the rib, and some 12/0 copper thread for the thorax. So to start the fly off, I put the bead onto the hook with the wide end towards the eyelet. Push that back. Now I'm going to take some 12/0 thread. I want very small thread to tie in the gills. So we'll tie the thread in. Then take a very small amount. Just, half of what I normally use for a bigger chironomid of antron for the gills. So we're going to tie that right behind the eye. Tie it in good, cut off as close as you can. I usually do a couple of wraps over and then whip finish there. And then once it's whip finished, we'll bring the bead up over the gills. And we'll cut the gills to length a little bit later. Now that we have the gills tied in, I've got my steel thread. Just going to take a few wraps right behind the bead just to get it tied in and cut off my excess. Now that I have the thread tied in, I'm going to take some 6/0 black thread. Just going to take a few wraps just down the body just to tie in the thread. And before I continue, I'm just going to cut off my excess. Now what we're going to do is just keep wrapping back. And as you wrap back again, counterclockwise spin your bobbin so that your thread will lay nice and flat. We want this to be a very thin chironomid. So I'm going to take that right back to the bend. Again, give my thread a spin and just wind up to form the body. And again, this is a very thin profile fly. It's a baby copper top. So don't build up the body too much. Just slightly taper it forward towards your bead. Now the body taper is tied in. I'm going to take a whip finisher, just whip finish off the thread, my steel thread. Cut that off. Now what we're going to do is spin our 6/0 thread because we want it to lay fairly flat, and we're just going to wind up the rib. So usually you're going to take again 6 to 7 wraps up. Once we get to the front behind the bead, just whip finish off your black thread there. Now that we have the rib and body tied in, I'm going to take this copper. And I really like the copper. A lot of times it'll be rust, but I like this copper to finish off to go with the magic brown bead. Take a few turns, cut off my thread there. Again, just take a few wraps to form a small thorax on the fly. Don't want it too thick. And then whip finish, just to finish off that thorax. And cut off your excess. Now, if you've got little bits of thread sticking out, which sometimes I do, I hold my wing case there, my gills, and just burn off any excess thread that you have on the hook. Now that you've got the whole body position, we're going to trim off our gills, I usually just cut them about the same length as a bead, quite small, but you want them to show up. Once the gills are to shape, we're going to take some of my favorite, and again, this is the Loctite. I love the Loctite to finish off. We're going to take a little bit of the Loctite, put it on the fly, and just smooth that out to form the body. And again, the steel thread, it won't change color a whole bunch. It's quite nice, but it'll really stand out with that copper top and just a small thin pattern. This one really works well. So there it is, Don's Baby Copper Top Chironomid. You know, the nice thing about this fly is that thin profile and the small size makes it invaluable on trophy crystal clear lakes.